Welcome to Mickey, Marvel, and More, Disney news, commentary, and opinion. From theme parks to Thanos and from Skywalker to Skyliner, my family and I will discuss it all. So let's go.
Please stand clear of the doors. Por favor, manténganse alejado de las puertas.
Hello there, Mark here, and welcome to another episode of Mickey, Marvel, and More. I think I can finally say that I have mostly recovered from the vacation virus that worked its way through our family during our Walt Disney World spring break trip. So much coughing, but I think we're all on the other side now and feeling much better. And speaking of our trip, we have received great feedback on our family trip report. Everyone really seemed to have enjoyed listening to it. I look forward to doing more of them in the future after every Disney trip on our family chats. And in this episode's family chat, Zack and I are going to sit down the virtual table and discuss the state of Disney Pixar animation. Has the great renaissance that started with The Little Mermaid in 1989 finally over? Are we in another dark period for Disney animation? Or did the pandemic not only change the way we watch movies, but also change our perception of them? Are Disney Pixar films no longer event viewing moments? I don't know, but Zack and I are going to sit down and talk about it in our family chat. But first, here is Laura with some news from in and around the Disneyverse.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are approaching our station at the entrance to Main Street, USA, gateway to the 7 theme lands of the Magic Kingdom.
The Disney Theme Park Division dropped some news last week that created quite a shockwave. They announced some big changes to their DAS system. For those that don't know, the Disability Access Service, known as DAS, is Disney's program for those with special needs to have easier access to rides and navigating the lines. The new guidelines posted last week said this: the DAS program is intended to accommodate a small percentage of guests who, due to developmental disability, like autism or similar, are unable to wait in a conventional queue for an extended period of time. End quote. Disney says that the service has always been meant for those visitors described in the new policy, but the program did not use such specific language in the past and was granted to users with other needs, like those with mobility issues or those that needed wheelchairs. So it seems like the main reason for this change and the more specific guidelines is due to frequent abuse of the current system, unfortunately. The most flagrant abuse of the system came to light a few years ago when it was revealed that third-party tour planners were fraudulently obtaining DAS credentials so their groups could skip the lines. So from our own experience while at the parks, we will see a family with a mobility scooter and their whole family escorted in through the exit to board the ride. Often they are accompanied by 10 to 15 family members. And you can imagine that if we're seeing that, other people are probably seeing that too, which is part of this compounding problem that I think Disney is attempting to address. Disney says that with tightening of these rules, they're going to limit the family members that can enter with the DAS recipient to 4, but they are going to make exceptions if you have multiple small children in your family. It was also revealed this week that Disney is handing the job of approving and providing the DAS passes to a third-party company. Now, this is the same company that Disney used for implementing their guidelines for procedures when they reopened during the pandemic. As you can imagine, many people have been voicing concerns on social media and blogs that their families have been granted access before, and they are concerned that they may be denied access in the future. Many of those complaining say that Disney is simply trying to force people to use the new Genie Plus system, which of course you have to pay for. Disney has stated that there will be a new return to queue system for those needing frequent bathroom breaks while in line. I can definitely see that leading to some confrontations with cast members. Hopefully, a lot of the concerns and confusion about the new policy will be cleared up in the coming weeks when Disney says they're going to post more detailed information about the entire new system. This issue is quickly becoming the new third rail for Disney. We'll keep you posted when the new information is released. But in the meantime, we hope that these improvements that Disney is announcing to the program will keep the program for those that really need it and eliminate the abuse for those that don't.
Will somebody get this big walking carpet out of my way?
The new Star Wars live-action series, The Acolyte, will be hitting Disney Plus this summer on June 4th. We'll put a link to the trailer in the show notes. It looks to be a super cool, action-packed show for sure. But according to series star Daphne Keane, the Acolyte isn't just trying to match the action sequences of past Star Wars shows, it's trying to beat them. Keane says, "It was very much, we want to top the Darth Maul fight, the most iconic fight, I think, in the Star Wars cinematic universe." End quote. Well, I think that goes without saying that is a super bold statement. The Darth Maul, Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan battle in Phantom Menace is highly regarded as one of the best lightsaber battles in any Star Wars project. According to the cast and crew of The Acolyte, the Darth Maul showdown was a big comparison point during the filming of their saber battles. Let's just hope that they've worked as hard on their script and story of The Acolyte as they have their lightsaber battles. The show has been said to be a prequel to the prequels, and I hope they deliver on June 4th on Disney Plus when the new show premieres. And if you want to revisit the Darth Maul battle on the big screen one more time, you will have a chance to on May the 3rd when Disney re-releases Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, for its 25th anniversary. Disney has also told fans that they will be treated to an exclusive look at The Acolyte, the upcoming Disney Plus series, as part of the Phantom Menace screenings. It looks to be a big spring and summer for Star Wars fans.
I can do this all day.
With all Marvel fans getting super excited for the return of Charlie Cox as Daredevil in the upcoming Disney Plus series Daredevil Born Again, it was super surprising this week when Disney announced that the 2003 Daredevil film starring Ben Affleck was going to drop on Disney Plus on Wednesday, May 1st. Now, when the movie hit the screen in 2003, it had mixed reviews from critics and fans alike. The biggest critic of the Daredevil is the star himself, Mr. Ben Affleck. He has been quoted as saying, quote, "Daredevil didn't work at all. That was before people realized you could make these movies and make them well. There was a cynical sense of put a red leather outfit on a guy, have him run around, hunt some bad guys, and cash the check." End quote. The actor has also been quoted as saying, "I hate Daredevil so much." Yikes. I call that a ringing endorsement. Unsurprisingly, Ben has not been asked back to reprise his role in the multi-universe skipping film Deadpool and Wolverine, but his ex-wife Jennifer Garner is suiting back up to play Elektra in the new film, a role that she first played alongside Affleck's Daredevil in 2003. Will you be watching Ben's least favorite film when it drops on Disney Plus in May? Our family might, just to remind ourselves why they didn't make any more Daredevil films with Affleck in the lead. Maybe we'll celebrate it as a mediocre movie night and celebrate with flat Coke and stale popcorn.
Don't you get it? You see the hat? I am Mrs. Nesbit. Snap out of it, Buzz.
When was the last time you made watching a Disney Pixar film a family event? Are we in another dark period of Disney animation like in the 70s and 80s? Maybe it's just the way that Disney does or doesn't promote films like they used to. Or maybe we're just overwhelmed by choices because there's just so much stuff to see. Zach is joining me now from an underground bunker in Chicago from our Echo-based studios to sort all this out. Zach, thanks so much for being with us.
Hello, dear viewers. I guess listeners in this case. I'm back.
All right, so let's get to the meat of the issue here. So, is the old saying true that they just don't make them like they used to, or are some really great Disney Pixar films just being lost in the shuffle?
As with a lot of issues of this nature, it's complicated.
Yeah.
I think. Not too long ago, the 2010s were touted as sort of a revival era for Disney. You had films like Tangled, you had films like Zootopia and Moana, Wreck-It Ralph, things that sort of that put Disney back on the map. After, in the early 2000s, there are plenty of things that are near and dear to my heart, like Lilo and Stitch. But for the most part, a lot of the movies that were coming out from like 2000 to 2009 weren't super well received. They were more experimental. They weren't what audiences were expecting from Disney.
Sure.
So Disney was riding the high life in the 2010s. And now we have entered sort of what I consider to be a new era for Disney. I don't want to say the streaming era because that feels to me a bit disingenuous. However, I think it is, without a doubt, we have entered the Disney sequel era. So I think there's an element of, yes, Disney has lost their mojo in terms of creating original films, but they are doubling down on their most profitable franchises, which is a whole other issue unto itself. And the same goes for Pixar. They were doing well, and then they had a couple of movies that didn't do well, and now they're scared. And the Disney higher ups have said, we want you to focus on the things that we know are going to work. No more risks. And I think that is the primary issue that these animation companies under Disney are facing right now. They aren't willing to take creative risks to make a really solid project, and they are sticking too close to their laurels, I guess is the right word here, and they're coming out with half-baked projects or things that just aren't as interesting.
Yeah, I feel that that's probably true. We kind of touched on it a second ago when you talked about streaming, but it is such a different world now. Do you think that maybe some of these films are flying under the radar or people are missing out on them because Disney doesn't know how to promote things now like they used to? Used to be simple. You just see a commercial on television and you'd go see the film, but it doesn't really work like that anymore. Do you think maybe they should promote things differently? Maybe that would help draw people's attention to some of these projects?
There clearly needs to be a shift in their marketing. Just, what was it, I guess 2 years ago, 1 year ago at this point, Strange World came out.
Oh, yeah.
That is, like, it is a Disney film. It is part of, it's not like a side project. It was at the time Disney's next film. And I don't think I have ever seen a Disney film marketed less than that one.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't even know for sure when it was coming out, and it just kind of came and went, and most people didn't even know it happened.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm trying to think here. Pixar they also suffered during the pandemic a bit in sort of a different way. When the pandemic came, obviously people were not going to theaters, movies were pulled out of theaters, but a lot of companies still had films that they were ready to put out. And so Pixar, during that era, had 3 movies that were sent directly to Disney Plus and never got a theatrical release. Meanwhile, with the Disney films, they did the simultaneous thing, like they did this with Encanto, where it was in theaters and on streaming at the same day.
Right.
So Pixar, they had 3 films, Soul, Luca, and Turning Red. Those films never got theatrical releases. They were just put right onto the platform. And then Pixar didn't get its grand return to theaters until Lightyear.
Right.
Which was not, a great opening shot to put Pixar back in theaters. But they put it back in theaters because they were the Disney CEOs were like, oh, this is a Toy Story spinoff. Of course we have to put this in theaters. And then Pixar's film after that, Elemental, Disney didn't know how to market it. They marketed it as a star-crossed lover story, and it's not.
Right.
After having watched the film, it is not about that whatsoever. But I think Disney was nervous to promote what the film was actually about, which was more of an immigrant story. And I think they were worried about whatever, political or social backlash they were going to get from that.
Yeah, they were afraid. They were afraid that it might be too much of a hot button issue, so they didn't want to cross that line.
Yeah, so they're like, oh, it's a romance between people who shouldn't be in love. Oh, it's a Romeo and Juliet story, and nobody cared.
Right.
So Disney does not know how to market their films currently. The last film they pushed and marketed it correctly was Wish. And they made because to them that was a big deal. This is their 100th anniversary movie.
Right.
This is classic Disney. They're like, this is the Disney everyone has been missing. And then it came out. It was a critical box office failure and nobody liked it. I haven't seen it yet. I have only heard that people didn't like it. Needless to say, it didn't go well for them. And that was with them marketing it correctly.
Yeah, it seems like back in the day, you would have a Disney film or a Pixar film, and you knew immediately that it was going to be a lot of fun and the family was going to enjoy it, and it would most likely get nominated for an Oscar, but that's not really happening now. It seems like that Disney kind of gets nominated for an Oscar just because they were the only other animated project out, and then something else wins instead. Like some of the foreign animated films that have been doing really well. It just seems like that. I don't want to say that the magic is gone because that's kind of cliche, but it kind of feels that way to an extent.
Yeah, there's there's something missing, and not every movie is like that. Encanto was great. That was classic Disney. And it worked really well for them, but they had films like Raya and the Last Dragon, Strange World. Those were not classic Disney, and they didn't pan out well. And it makes you wonder. I think for Disney, when they saw those movies fail, they thought, "Oh, it's because we took a risk. We can't do that." When in reality, it's more of an issue of, no, you just made kind of a bad movie.
Right.
Pixar is in a slightly different boat where they still tend to try to take more original ideas, more creative risks with their films, but they just aren't received well. And I'm still kind of struggling to figure out what exactly that is, why that keeps happening, why their films just aren't being received as well.
Right.
And I think in the COVID era, it fully had to do with they all got pushed under the radar.
Right. Yeah, they just kind of got dropped and shoved to the side and then thrown on the streaming service, and nobody said much about them.
Yeah, because Soul Luca and Turning Red are all I enjoy all of those movies, but nobody they didn't get the attention. And then when Pixar came back, it was Lightyear and Elemental.
Right.
One being not a great movie, and then the other one being Disney didn't market it correctly. So I would say that in general, Pixar is still putting out better content than Disney Animation Studios proper, but Disney keeps sort of screwing them over and not letting them achieve the success that they've earned.
Yeah. You kind of answered one of the questions I was going to ask earlier, so I'll propose this question. What Disney films that have come out in the last 5 or 6 years that we just missed out on that are good films? You mentioned one. You mentioned Encanto. So what are some other films you could recommend from this era that people maybe should give it a shot and maybe they've just missed out on it?
Well, for Disney animation, proper Disney animation, I feel like the only one I can properly recommend to you is Encanto.
Okay. Well, what about Moana? Where does that fall in this radar, or was that too long ago?
Moana was back in 2016.
Okay.
So that's 8 years ago at this point.
Yeah.
And keep your eyes out because Moana 2 comes out later this year.
Right. It was going to be a television series, and now I guess they've edited it together to make it a big screen film.
I am quite convinced that after they saw how Wish performed at the box office, they were like, all right, that's it. We are returning to form. We are only making sequels for the foreseeable future. That Moana TV show, repackage it. We're putting it on the big screen.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, because the big slate that they announced, or Bob Iger announced in one of his, I think at the earnings call, it was a Toy Story sequel. It was a Moana sequel. What they mentioned 2 other sequels too.
Yeah. Let me give you a quick little rundown on the upcoming movies here since we're talking about it. So Disney currently has 2 confirmed upcoming movies with release dates.
Okay.
The first of which is Moana 2 later this year, and then the second of which is a Zootopia 2, which will be sometime next year.
Right. That was the other one I was thinking of.
Yeah. And I think they've been talking about Zootopia 2 for a while. That's not a surprise that that's happening. But keep in mind, this will mean that the last original movie they've made will be Wish. And then we're going to get Moana 2, Zootopia 2, and then they've said after that in 2026 they want to do Frozen 3.
Right.
So that is another string of sequels, and Disney only typically puts out one movie a year.
So that's going to be a pretty long run of just sequels and nothing original.
And they've also said that they've already got a Frozen 4 in the works. So that'll be somewhere else down the line. I'm sure that they will still make original movies down the line, but they are so worried about making any kind of risk whatsoever that they are only making sequels. And Pixar isn't faring much better. Later this year, this summer, we're getting Inside Out 2, which, I think looks good.
The trailer looked cute.
Pixar is getting an original movie next summer, Elio. They've only released a teaser for it, so it's hard to tell what it's really going to be about.
Right.
But it seems to be like some sort of alien abduction story.
Okay.
That'll be different. I think the idea is these aliens come to Earth and are looking for the planet's leader. And they try to get in contact with this one woman who they believe to be the planet's leader. And then they abduct her son instead. So then all of these aliens think he's the king of Earth or whatever. And then I assume hijinks ensue from there. And then in 2026, Pixar will be doing Toy Story 5.
So do you think that there is enough left in the Toy Story toy box to tell another story? I kind of felt the last one was okay, but it was a bit of a stretch and a kind of a yawner.
Toy Story 3 was a perfect ending.
I agree.
It's pretty hard to deny that. And then they made some really cute shorts that I thought were great. Like
those were fun.
Yeah, they had the Halloween one, they had the Christmas one. Those were great. Like, they didn't feel like they were ruining the story. They just sort of felt like, oh, these are fun stories that they would have now that we're there with Bonnie.
Yeah, they were the cute little one-offs that didn't really affect the main story, but were fun to watch.
Right. And then they had Toy Story 4, which, like you said, was okay. And I still, to this day, argue that if they had made that a Woody solo film, it would have done a lot better.
Yeah, because it didn't feel like a traditional Toy Story film because it just focused on Woody kind of trying to find his way in the world now that he felt like he didn't belong anywhere.
Exactly. It didn't feel like the Toy Story movies have always been ensemble films with like Buzz and Woody as the leads.
Right.
This felt like a Woody movie where the rest of the gang were all side characters.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, they kind of they took away what made Toy Story fun, which was the interactions between the toys and the goofiness, and they just kind of turned it into a Woody soul-searching film. So
then Lightyear, it didn't need to exist. Whatever. We didn't to belabor that.
I know. Nobody knew. Well, the average person didn't understand what the story was about. They didn't understand that it's an in-universe film where this is the movie in the universe that inspired the Buzz Lightyear toy. That's why Tim Allen's not doing the voice. Nobody understood that.
So when Toy Story 5 rolls around, I don't know what they're going to do because they don't have Woody anymore. So unless they screw up what they've already established with Toy Story 4 and they're like, Woody's back with the gang. They need him for an adventure.
Yeah, because he ran off with Bo Peep at the end.
Yeah, it's going to make all of Toy Story 4 entirely redundant. So they have to stick to their guns on this, and it's just Buzz as the lead now. There is no Woody. But how are they going to make a Toy Story film without Woody? Is that even going to work?
Yeah, that they can't do it without him. So it's going to be interesting to see how they pull this off. So to wrap all this up, I don't want to end on a negative note. So let's try to end on a positive note. What is coming out that you are actually very much looking forward to?
So I am genuinely excited for Inside Out 2.
Yes, I think that would be fun.
I have a lot of faith that they're putting solid effort into that movie and they want to make it good. I have a lot of faith in that. I am cautiously optimistic for Moana 2 and Zootopia 2. More cautiously optimistic for Zootopia 2. because I think that there's a lot they can explore with the world they've established of Zootopia.
Yeah, they've just had the one film and there seems to be more room to tell stories there.
There's a lot of opportunity to explore, because Zootopia's whole thing is exploring human issues through the allegory of animals. There's a lot of things they could do with that.
Sure.
Are they going to be able to nail it on the head again? Who knows? That's why I'm cautiously optimistic.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us for this quite possibly overanalyzation of what's going on. But I think it was an important story to talk about because people are kind of, they look at Disney these days and scratch their heads. So let's just hope that what they have coming out is going to knock it out of the park and bring back some of that Disney magic.
Yeah, animated films are Disney's lifeblood. That's how they got started. I would hate to see them truly crash and burn. If anything, let this podcast be a Disney, we know you can do better.
We're really rooting for you, Disney.
Yeah.
All right, buddy. Thanks for joining us.
Of course.
Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Mickey, Marvel, and More. Before we sign off, I need to thank Laura for reading the news from in and around the Disneyverse for this episode. I've got to say, she really classes up the joint and makes us all seem like real professionals. So thanks so much, honey. Also, a big thanks to Zach for joining us this week to discuss the state of Disney Pixar films. Great insight as always, my boy. Be sure to check out our show notes for the links to the news stories that we talked about in this episode, as well as links to all of our socials. Be sure to hit us up with a like, follow, or comment. We would love to hear from you. You can also always drop us a note at our email address, mickeymarvelandmore, all one word, @gmail.com. As always, if you enjoyed this episode, my name is Mark, and this has been Mickey, Marvel, and More. If you didn't, well, my name is Rick Lagina, and this has been The Curse of Oak Island. It's been 11 seasons, and we still haven't found anything on this island. Absolutely nothing. We'll see you next time.